I thought Christmas dinner would be the night I finally shared the happiest news of my life. After 4 years of infertility, countless tears, and more doctor's appointments than I could count, I was finally pregnant. But before that night was over, my mother-in-law would be crying. My husband would be begging me not to leave him. And one unexpected visitor would destroy everything his family thought they knew about me. But to understand why that Christmas dinner changed my life forever, you need to know why my husband's family had spent 10 years trying to make me feel like I never belonged. I met my husband, Ethan Parker, 12 years ago. Back then, neither of us had much money. We were young, in love, and convinced that love was enough to overcome anything. I was finishing nursing school. He was working for his father's company. And despite coming from completely different worlds, we somehow made it work. At least, that's what I thought. Because from the very beginning, one person made it clear that I wasn't welcome. His mother, Diane Parker. The first time I met Diane, she smiled politely. But the moment Ethan left the room, that smile disappeared. She slowly looked me up and down, then asked a question I'd never forget. So, what exactly do your parents do? I smiled. My dad teaches history and my mom teaches 3rd grade. Her eyebrows rose. Oh, just one word. But somehow, that one word told me everything. To Diane Parker, teachers weren't impressive. They weren't wealthy. And neither was I. Later that night, I overheard her talking to one of her friends. I just don't understand what Ethan sees in her. She's sweet, I suppose. But love doesn't pay bills. The word stung. But I convinced myself things would get better. After all, mothers are protective, right? I had no idea that would only be the beginning. Because after Ethan and I got married, the insults became impossible to ignore. His younger sister, Vanessa, inherited Diane's personality. Beautiful, stylish, and completely convinced she was better than everyone else. Especially me. Every Thanksgiving, every birthday, every family gathering, Vanessa had something to say. Oh, Lily's dress is cute. I think I donated one just like it last year. Or, nursing must be exhausting. I could never do that. Then she'd laugh. As long as you're happy, I guess. And everyone would laugh with her. Everyone except Ethan. He'd just sit there. Quiet. Uncomfortable. But silent. Always silent. At first I defended him. He hates conflict. He doesn't want drama. He's caught in the middle. That's what I told myself. For 10 years. 10 years. Until eventually, I stopped expecting him to stand up for me. Because disappointment hurts less when you expect nothing. Suspense. But as painful as their insults were, nothing hurt me more than the question they asked every single year. So Lily, when are you finally giving Ethan a baby? And this Christmas, they were about to ask it again. Except this time, they had no idea I was carrying a secret that had taken 4 heartbreaking years to become reality. And I certainly had no idea that before the night was over, my mother-in-law would say something so cruel. It would break something inside me forever. By Christmas morning, I had convinced myself that this year would be different. Maybe because I finally had something wonderful to celebrate. Or maybe because after 10 years, I desperately wanted to believe that things could change. I stood in front of the mirror, gently placing my hand on my stomach. For years. For painful years. For years of negative pregnancy tests. Failed treatments. Sleepless nights. And silent tears. But finally, Finally, God had answered our prayers. And tonight I was going to tell everyone. I even wrapped the ultrasound picture inside a small gift box. I imagined Diane crying tears of joy, Vanessa hugging me, and Ethan proudly announcing that he was going to be a father. Looking back, I almost laugh at how naive I was, because instead of giving me the happiest memory of my life, that Christmas dinner would give me something else, a memory I'd never forget. As soon as we arrived at the Parker mansion, I knew something felt wrong. Diane barely looked at me. "Oh, you're here. Not Merry Christmas. Not good to see you. Just, oh, you're here." Vanessa smiled smugly. Kyle barely looked up from his phone. And Richard, Ethan's father, simply nodded. Meanwhile, Ethan acted like nothing was unusual. "Relax," he whispered. "They don't mean anything by it." I forced a smile, because I'd heard those words hundreds of times before. An hour later, everyone gathered around the dining table. The room looked beautiful. The candles, the decorations, the smell of roasted turkey. Anyone looking from the outside would think we were the perfect family, but appearances can be very deceiving, and I was about to be reminded of that. Halfway through dinner, Diane stood up with her wine glass. "I'd like to make a toast." Everyone smiled. "To family." Everyone raised their glasses. Then she turned toward me. "And to those who marry above their station." The room suddenly became quiet. Vanessa burst out laughing. Kyle smirked. Even Richard chuckled. My smile disappeared. And then Diane laughed. "Come on, everyone knows what I mean." When Ethan married Lily, I honestly thought he'd eventually come to his senses. More laughter, more smiles, and all I could do was stare at my plate, waiting, begging, praying, for my husband to say something. Anything. But Ethan just shifted uncomfortably. "Mom." That was it. That was all. New suspense. But what happened next was far worse, because Diane wasn't finished, and the next words that came out of her mouth would hit me harder than anything she'd said in 10 years. Vanessa leaned forward. "So Lily, when are you finally going to make Ethan a father?" The entire table looked toward me. My heart skipped. I almost smiled, because I had been waiting for this question. I was finally going to tell them. But before I could speak, Diane interrupted. "Oh, leave her alone." She laughed. "Some women just aren't meant to be mothers." The room exploded with laughter. And in that moment, everything around me stopped. Because they didn't know. They had no idea. After 4 years of infertility, after years of pain, I was finally pregnant. And those words cut straight through my heart. I felt tears filling my eyes. And once again, I looked at Ethan. Please say something. Please defend me." But he simply whispered, "Just ignore her. Just ignore her." 10 years. 10 years of insults. 10 years of humiliation. And all my husband could say was, "Ignore her." Something inside me broke. Completely. New suspense. But I still didn't know. Diane had one final surprise waiting for me. A Christmas gift. And when I opened it, the entire room burst into laughter. And that was the moment I realized I had never truly been family to these people. I wish I could tell you that after Diane's cruel comment, things got better. I wish I could tell you someone defended me, or that someone realized they had gone too far. But if there's one thing I've learned about cruel people, It's that when everyone around them stays silent, they become even crueler. And my mother-in-law wasn't finished. Not even close. A few minutes later, Diane suddenly stood up. Oh my goodness, where are my manners? I almost forgot. She smiled sweetly. I have a special Christmas gift for Lily. Everyone looked surprised. Even I was shocked. Because in 10 years, that woman had never bought me anything. Not once. For a moment I thought, maybe she was trying to make peace. Maybe becoming grandparents had softened their hearts. Maybe, just maybe, I had judged her too harshly. God, I was so wrong. Diane reached under the table and handed me a beautifully wrapped box. Merry Christmas, dear. Vanessa was trying so hard not to laugh. I noticed it immediately, but I ignored it. Maybe I was imagining things. Smiling politely, I opened the box. And the moment I looked inside, my heart sank. It was a pink cleaning apron. And underneath it, a pair of yellow dishwashing gloves. For a second, I thought it had to be some kind of mistake. Until Diane started laughing. And then Vanessa nearly fell out of her chair laughing. Kyle clapped. Even Richard chuckled. And then Diane smiled proudly. Since you're so talented at taking care of people, I figured we should encourage your true calling. The room exploded with laughter. I sat there frozen, humiliated, speechless. And for the first time in 10 years, I couldn't force a smile. Because something inside me had finally shattered. Not because of the apron. Not because of the gloves. But because I realized something terrifying. These people didn't just dislike me. They enjoyed hurting me. And somehow, that hurt even more. Tears filled my eyes. And once again, I looked at Ethan. My husband. The man I'd loved for 12 years. The man whose child I was carrying. Surely he would stop this. Surely this was the moment he'd finally stand beside me. Right? Instead, he gave me a nervous smile and quietly whispered, "Come on, Lily. It's just a joke. Just laugh. Just laugh." Those 2 words destroyed something in me. Because suddenly, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was tired. Tired of hoping. Tired of forgiving. Tired of waiting for a man who would never choose me. And at that moment, I realized something I should have realized years ago. I was completely alone. New suspense. Or at least, that's what I thought. Because less than 15 minutes later, everything would change. And the people laughing at me would suddenly stop laughing. Forever. Without saying a word, I stood up. The room became quiet. Diane rolled her eyes. "Oh, don't be so sensitive." Vanessa smirked. "Seriously, Lily. You cry over everything." Kyle shook his head. And Richard simply continued eating. Nobody stopped me. Nobody apologized. Nobody cared. Not even Ethan. Not even my own husband. As I grabbed my purse and headed toward the front door, I heard Diane say something that made my blood run cold. Honestly, Ethan deserved someone better. And then, everyone laughed. Everyone. Including my husband. That was it. After 10 years. I was done. I opened the front door, tears streaming down my face. The cold December air hit my skin. And I walked toward my car. But before I could reach it, bright headlights suddenly appeared. One black SUV pulled into the driveway. Then another. And another. 3 luxury vehicles. I stopped walking, confused. Inside the house, everyone rushed to the windows. Vanessa frowned. Who on earth is that? Richard stood up. Kyle put down his phone. And Diane's smile slowly disappeared. Because the first man who stepped out of the SUV was someone everyone in the room recognized immediately. And when my mother-in-law saw his face, she nearly dropped her wine glass. Because standing in front of the Parker house was one of the most powerful men in the entire state. But he wasn't the person who shocked me the most. No. The woman who stepped out behind him made me completely freeze. And the second I saw her face, tears filled my eyes again. Because standing there was someone I hadn't seen in almost 8 months. And I could barely whisper 2 words. Grandma Evelyn. For a moment, I forgot about the tears. I forgot about the humiliation. I forgot about the laughter echoing behind me, because standing at the end of the driveway was someone I hadn't seen in 8 months. Grandma Evelyn. My voice barely came out, and the second she saw me, her face lit up. My sweet girl. Without hesitation, the elderly woman hurried toward me and wrapped her arms around me. And just like that, I broke down. Not because of what had happened inside, but because after years of feeling unwanted, someone had finally hugged me like I mattered. Behind us, everyone had gathered near the front door, completely speechless, because they all recognized the man standing beside her. Senator Michael Harper, one of the most respected men in the entire state, a man who rarely appeared anywhere without security, and yet, there he was, standing in my mother-in-law's driveway. Diane's face had turned pale. Richard suddenly straightened his tie. Vanessa looked like she'd seen a ghost. And Kyle whispered, "No way." But none of them mattered to Grandma Evelyn. Her eyes remained fixed on me. Then suddenly, her smile disappeared. She noticed my tears. "My darling, what happened?" Before I could answer, she looked down and saw the pink cleaning apron still hanging from my hand. Her expression changed completely, and in that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. Anger. Real anger. New suspense. Because in 20 years, I'd never once seen Grandma Evelyn angry. And trust me, everyone inside that house was about to regret giving her a reason. Slowly, she turned toward the front door. And for the first time, everyone became nervous. Especially Diane. "Oh, Mrs. Harper." Diane forced a smile. What a wonderful surprise. But Grandma Evelyn ignored her. Completely. Instead, she looked at Senator Harper, her son, and calmly said, "Michael." Who hurt her? The entire room became silent. Dead silent. No one spoke. No one moved. Until Diane nervously laughed. "Oh, it's nothing. Just family jokes." Family jokes. Those 2 words made Grandma Evelyn furious. Family. She repeated softly. Then she stepped inside. And for the first time that night, nobody dared sit down. Her eyes landed on Ethan. And suddenly, my husband looked terrified. "Ethan, did you allow this?" He stuttered. "I didn't mean." "You didn't mean what?" Grandma Evelyn interrupted. "You didn't mean to defend your wife? You didn't mean to stop them? You didn't mean to act like a husband?" Ethan lowered his eyes. And for the first time in 12 years, I saw shame on his face. Richard cleared his throat. "I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding." But Senator Harper's voice suddenly became cold. "No. A misunderstanding is forgetting someone's birthday. This woman is crying. That's not a misunderstanding. Vanessa couldn't stay quiet. Oh, please. Everyone's acting like we committed a crime. It was just a joke. Grandma Evelyn slowly looked at her, and the room froze. Young lady. Kind people don't humiliate others for entertainment. And cruel people always call it a joke. Vanessa immediately looked away. New suspense. But then, Grandma Evelyn said something that made everyone's faces change. Something none of them had expected. She smiled and quietly said, "Perhaps it's time I shared why I came here tonight." And suddenly, everyone started smiling again. Especially Diane, because they thought they were about to hear very good news. But they had absolutely no idea that their entire world was about to collapse. Grandma Evelyn slowly sat down. Then she looked directly at me and smiled warmly. "My sweet girl, I wanted to tell you this in person. My doctors have advised me to slow down. And recently, I updated my will." The room froze. Diane's eyes widened. Richard sat up straight. Vanessa smiled. Even Kyle stopped breathing. Because everyone knew exactly who Grandma Evelyn was. A billionaire philanthropist, founder of several charities, and mother of Senator Michael Harper. Diane practically glowed with excitement. After all, if her family impressed Grandma Evelyn, who knew what opportunities might come? But then, Grandma Evelyn reached for my hand and smiled. "The majority of everything I own will go to Lily." The room exploded into silence. Ethan dropped his glass. Vanessa's mouth fell open. Kyle whispered, "What?" And Diane actually stopped breathing for a second. But they still didn't know the biggest secret of all. Because while everyone sat there in shock, I placed my hand over my stomach and realized I could finally tell the truth. But what I said next would completely destroy my husband's world. The room was silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Because after Grandma Evelyn announced that the majority of her estate would go to me, it felt as if time itself had stopped. Diane's face had gone completely white. Vanessa looked like she couldn't breathe. Kyle simply stared. And Ethan, my husband, looked utterly lost. But they still didn't understand something. Grandma Evelyn's inheritance wasn't what mattered most to me. Not even close. Because hidden inside my purse was a tiny ultrasound picture. The real reason I had come to Christmas dinner. The reason I'd spent weeks smiling despite all the pain. The reason I'd convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, this Christmas could heal our family. But after everything that had happened, I wasn't sure anymore. New suspense. And then Senator Harper smiled and unknowingly gave me the courage to finally tell the truth. But what happened next? No one in that room was prepared for. "My dear," Senator Harper said, "I believe you had some news of your own." Grandma Evelyn smiled and squeezed my hand. "Yes, sweetheart. You wanted to tell everyone something." Tears filled my eyes. Because for the first time that night, someone was actually happy for me. I slowly reached into my purse and pulled out the small gift box. Everyone looked confused. Even Ethan. "What is that?" he asked. I opened the box and placed the ultrasound picture on the table. For several seconds, nobody understood. Then Richard's eyes widened. "Oh my God!" Vanessa gasped. Kyle stood up. And Ethan froze. "No." His voice cracked. No way. I smiled through my tears. Yes. I'm pregnant. For a moment, nobody said a word. Then Ethan burst into tears. Actual tears. He jumped up from his chair. Lily. Oh my God. We're having a baby. He wrapped his arms around me. And for one brief second, the old Ethan came back. The man I had fallen in love with. The man I had spent 12 years believing in. But then, I remembered. The toast. The insults. The apron. The laughter. His silence. And slowly, I stepped away from him. New suspense. Because there was one more thing I hadn't told him. Something that would completely destroy his world. And when I finally said it, even Grandma Evelyn looked shocked. Ethan wiped away his tears. We're going to be parents. Oh my God. This is the happiest day of my life. Diane herself started crying. My grandbaby. Oh Lily. I'm so sorry. Vanessa suddenly smiled. Richard looked emotional. It was amazing. 10 minutes earlier, I had been their joke. And now, suddenly they loved me. Suddenly I mattered. Suddenly, I was family. But it was too late. 10 years too late. I looked at Ethan. Then quietly said, there's something else. He smiled. What is it? I took a deep breath. And said the words that changed everything. I'm pregnant. And yesterday morning, I filed for divorce. The room froze. Completely froze. Ethan blinked. No. This isn't funny. Diane stood up. What are you talking about? You can't leave. Vanessa's mouth dropped open. Richard looked stunned. And Ethan, poor Ethan, looked like his entire soul had shattered. You filed for divorce? His voice broke. When? Yesterday. I answered calmly. Before coming here. But why? He whispered. Why? And for the first time in 12 years, I told him the truth. Because I got tired. Tired of defending myself. Tired of waiting for you. Tired of begging my husband to choose me. Tired of being alone. You weren't a bad man, Ethan. But you were never brave enough. And tonight, you chose silence one last time. Tears streamed down his face. No. I'll change. I swear. Please. Please don't do this. But Grandma Evelyn quietly stood beside me and placed a hand on my shoulder, because she understood something Ethan didn't. Some apologies arrived too late. 6 months later. 6 months later, I moved into a beautiful home near Grandma Evelyn. My divorce was finalized peacefully, and on a sunny July morning, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. Grandma Evelyn cried the first time she held her. Senator Harper became her godfather. And for the first time in my life, I understood what family really meant. Not blood. Not money. Not appearances. Love. Respect. And loyalty. As for Diane, she wrote me dozens of letters, begging for forgiveness. Vanessa tried reaching out. Even Richard apologized. But I had finally learned something. People don't suddenly change when they need something from you. They reveal who they truly are when you have nothing they want. And Ethan? He spent months trying to win me back. Sending flowers. Writing letters. Begging for another chance. But every time I looked at him, I remembered those 2 words. Just laugh. And I realized something. A broken heart can heal. Sometimes never comes back. And that's how the family who humiliated me at Christmas dinner lost everything. And how I finally found the family I deserved all along. The end.